everyone, ready for a deep dive into something kind of mind-blowing. Today, we're tackling this idea of sealing power. We're looking at a recent address actually titled The Sealing Power, given at a big religious conference.
Yeah, and even if you're not super into organized religion, this one's worth a listen.
Absolutely. We're talking universal stuff, family, legacy, what connects us beyond just, like, our everyday lives.
Right, and it gets really interesting because they're describing this sealing power as this divinely given authority.
Okay, so, like, straight from the top.
Yeah, and not just any authority, but one that operates on this cosmic level. It bridges both earth and heaven.
Oh, whoa, whoa. Cosmic level, like a universal stamp of approval, but with, like, eternal consequences.
Exactly, and that's a key point they emphasize.
hmm
This power makes actions binding in both realms, like what you do here, echoes in eternity.
So way more than just some religious ceremony,
Oh,
then.
way more. Think like baptisms and stuff, they become eternally significant because of this sealing power. It's like their whole concept of eternal families hinges on this.
Okay, so it's like what's bound on earth is bound in heaven, but with a serious spiritual upgrade.
Exactly.
This is what I find fascinating because, like, we think of religion focusing on the individual, right? But this sealing power is all about connection.
Yes. It's about gathering people together, and not even in just a physical way,
Mm.
this gathering. It's about making spiritual links between generations,
Mm.
past, present, future.
Oh, wow. Okay, so, like, saying our stories are just one chapter in this much bigger book or all part of something so much bigger.
Precisely. It stresses that we all carry echoes of those who came before, and we have the potential to impact generations that haven't even been born yet.
Okay, now that's kind of blowing my mind a little.
Yeah, and that's where it gets even more interesting. They argue that specific buildings, these temples, they're like crucial for this sealing to actually happen.
Wait, hold on. Are we talking spiritual Wi-Fi hotspots here, but instead of connecting devices, it's connecting, like, souls across time? Because honestly, my internet could use an upgrade.
I like that. A place where the veil between like the physical and the divine is thin, a bridge between the earthly and the eternal.
Okay, now we're in, like, serious sci-fi territory, and I'm here for it. So these temples, this is where the magic happens, or the sealing, I should say.
Yeah, you got it. And here's a really wild part. They emphasize that this sealing power makes salvation and something they call exaltation available to everyone no matter what.
Okay, hold up. Before we get too far, define exaltation. What does that even mean here?
Good point. So it's basically like reaching the highest level of the afterlife in their belief system, ultimate closeness with God.
Okay.
And they're saying everyone can achieve this, not just a select few, but everyone.
So nobody's left behind, essentially.
Exactly. Second chances, uniting families across time. Imagine like someone who, for whatever reason, just didn't find those strong bonds in life. This power offers a way to heal those wounds and find belonging in this much bigger cosmic sense.
That's powerful. It's like building your family tree not just back through history, but into eternity. Instead of ending, it just keeps branching out forever. Wow.
It really makes you think differently about time and family history. We think of it as linear, right? Starting point, ending point. But this suggests something way more interconnected.
Like a giant web.
Yes. Past, present, future, all woven together. And, the source acknowledges that not everyone has that picture-perfect family background.
Oh, tell me about it.
Life is messy, right? But instead of ignoring that, they lean in, they admit the reality of brokenness, but offer this really hopeful message. They say broken links can be mended. It's never too late to strengthen those bonds.
Even after death, that's huge. Like, those connections, they transcend our earthly experience.
Right. And to illustrate this whole idea of lasting bonds, they talk about this woman, Patricia, who had passed away.
Okay.
And it's how he talks about her passing. He emphasizes that her most important day wasn't the day she was born or the day she died. It was the day she was sealed to her husband in a temple.
Wow. That's a powerful statement. Like, their bond, their connection, it goes beyond the boundaries of life and death.
And then, to really drive home the point that this sealing power is for everyone, everywhere, he shares a story from Argentina.
Okay, this is what I love, those real-life stories that bring these big, sometimes complicated concepts down to earth. So what happened in Argentina?
So he's in Argentina, and this woman approaches him. She wants to be sealed to her parents. But, and here's the thing, they weren't alive anymore.
Oh, wow. So even though they were gone, she still felt that pull, that need for connection. It's really powerful, right? How deeply rooted that desire for family is.
Absolutely, it speaks to that. innate human longing for belonging, even across time and distance. And of course, he helps make that sealing happen. It underscores that these connections aren't just for the living.
Wow. Okay, this is making me rethink family history, like in a big way. It's not just about old photo albums, right? It's about these living connections that go way beyond our own lifetimes.
Totally.
Yeah.
And this idea of sealing, it's not some standalone thing. It's woven into this idea of gathering, of building this community that goes beyond physical limits.
Right. We talked about that earlier, that gathering, not just geographically, but like spiritually. This community that spans both time and eternity, which is just wild to think about.
Exactly. And the source argues that sealing power is the glue that holds it all together. It creates these bonds so strong they transcend time, space, everything, linking generations in this, like, tapestry of shared experience.
So we really are all connected, part of something way bigger.
It's a powerful image.
Yeah.
What's interesting is they don't just leave it vague and abstract. There are guidelines, rituals, steps to make these connections actually happen.
Right, like with those temples we talked about.
Exactly. The source goes deep on how these temples are essential to the process. They're not just for worship, they're like sacred spaces, set apart from the world where you can connect with the divine.
They're like spiritual gateways or like havens. It's giving like Narnia vibes, but instead of a magical wardrobe, it's these buildings.
And in those sacred spaces is where the sealing ordinances are performed, creating those eternal bonds and these connections. They're not just symbolic, they have real weight in the afterlife, they believe.
That's a lot. It makes you wonder about people who don't have access to these temples or aren't part of this specific faith. What about them?
That's a really good question. And to be fair, the source doesn't like dive deep into those specifics, but they emphasize that God's love is universal and salvation is available to all, regardless of their circumstances.
Okay, so while these sealing ordinances are a big deal in this faith, it's not like it's the only path to a good afterlife.
Right. It emphasizes that everyone, no matter who they are, where they come from, they have the chance for a good afterlife.
I appreciate that. Keeps it hopeful and inclusive, you know.
Definitely. It's about our shared humanity, those things that connect us all, despite our differences.
Makes me think of Patricia again, the woman from the story, and how he emphasized the day she was sealed to her husband as her most significant day. It makes you think about what lasts, what really matters. It's not just about when we're born and when we die. It's about the moments that tie us together, the connections that shape us and outlive us, even.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. Those moments, those bonds, they become part of this eternal tapestry. And whether we believe the specifics of it or not, that core idea that we yearn for a connection that's bigger than just our physical existence, that resonates.
It does. It makes you want to reach out to strengthen those bonds, to make sure the people you care about know how much they mean to you. Not just now, but always.
I agree. It's a reminder to cherish those we have, build bridges over our differences, try to leave things a little bit brighter.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've given our listeners a lot to unpack today.
We have. It's been a fascinating deep dive.
It's like we're all kind of searching for those threads, right? The ones that connect us, those invisible strings that tie our stories together.
Yeah.
Some people find it in family, their communities, what they're passionate about. But this whole sealing thing, it's like taking those connections to a whole other level, like saying those bonds can actually outlive time itself.
And it's not just about finding them. It's about actively creating them, nurturing them, making them strong enough to last for generations. That's a powerful message, don't you think?
It really is. And here's the thing. I think even if you don't buy into this specific belief system, that message is still powerful. It's this idea that we actually matter, that our lives have meaning, that what we do has ripple effects.
It's like that saying, the actions of one generation create the reality of the next. But here, it's more than actions. It's the connections, the bonds, the love we share. Those things echo.
Totally. It's hope and responsibility all mixed into one. And, thinking about Patricia again, the woman from that story, it's like the speaker really emphasized that her most important day was the one where she was sealed to her husband, not her birth, not her death. It makes you think about what really stands the test of time,
It's not about the dates on our tombstone. It's about those moments that bind us, those connections that shape our lives and even outlive us.
It's a beautiful way to look at it. Those moments, those connections, they become part of something bigger.
And I think whether we subscribe to this specific belief system or not, that core idea, that desire for connection, that yearning for something more than just our physical existence, That's universal.
It really is. It makes you want to reach out, strengthen those bonds, let the people in your life know how much they mean to you, you know?
Absolutely. It's a reminder to really cherish the people we have in our lives, to build bridges instead of walls.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've given our listeners a lot to chew on today.
We have. It's been quite a deep dive.
To everyone listening, we want to hear from you. What really stood out? Did this make you think about your own family history? Hit us up on social media, and let's keep this conversation going.